If you were to ask someone why the US economy could crash, they would give you one answer: an AI bubble, with companies like TSMC, Nvidia, Google, and AMD leading the charge. I think a recession is coming, but not in the way you may think. One man could crash the entire economy. Welcome to the Market Framework, where I cover everything from macroeconomics to individual companies. To start, let's talk about the Fed and what it really is. The Federal Reserve, or Fed, is the central bank of the United States. It has many crucial economic responsibilities, like controlling interest, keeping inflation low, and unemployment moderate. The Fed consists of 12 entities, each of whom has a vote to change policies. 5 of these members are regional bank presidents. 4 of these presidents rotate annually to have a vote, while the New York president always has a vote. The other 7 members are called the Board of Governors. Each of these governors always has a vote in policy changes, and one of them is titled the chairman. Although the chairman only has one vote, just like all the other members of the Fed, they're extremely important because they guide discussions, frame the agenda, and are in charge of communicating policy changes to the public. The current chairman of the Fed is Jerome Powell. Appointed in 2017, Powell has done an adequate job as chairman, particularly in guiding the U.S. through crisis management. Despite his performance as chairman of the Fed, Powell has faced backlash from President Trump. Trump has referred to him as a numbskull and even joked about firing him. Trump particularly dislikes Powell's conservative approach to cutting interest rates. However, this, quote, conservative approach is really just realistic. Here's what Trump fails to understand. Let's talk a little bit about interest rates versus inflation. Interest rates and inflation have what is called an inverse synergetic relationship. Put simply, this means when one goes up, the other tends to go down. Here's why. When interest rates are cut, borrowing becomes easier and cheaper, encouraging companies and consumers to spend more. However, increased spending and borrowing can push up prices, leading to higher inflation. Conversely, raising interest rates makes borrowing more expensive, which slows spending and can help reduce inflation. So if interest causes inflation to surge this much, why does Trump want to cut rates so badly? Well, when you cut rates, the effects that it can have on the economy can make the market appear prosperous at first glance. For example, markets surge, consumers have more money to spend, and companies invest more, especially in today's economy where AI infrastructure is so prominent. All of these reasons make it seem like the economy is booming under the Trump administration, and it can shine positive light on Trump himself. Yet Trump desires short-term success and is ignorant of long-term effects on inflation and market stability. Trump desires this prosperous economy so badly that he's come out and condemned the Fed, saying that they should cut rates by a full percentage point. Additionally, he says the next chairman must cut rates, and that is one of the key factors into who he chooses. To get a better understanding of the current economic situation we're in, let's go back to 1968 when President Nixon was elected. After a strong first term, Nixon needed a cause for his re-election campaign. To do so, he wanted a prosperous economy to make it seem like he was a better president. In order to do so, he began pressuring the Fed chair at the time, Arthur Burns, to keep cutting interest rates. This would boost the economy temporarily and frame Nixon as the mastermind behind the economic success. However, this seemingly prosperous economy would come back to hurt him in the future. From 1973 to 1975, the U.S. economy entered a state called stagflation. Stagflation means there's high inflation and slow growth that prompts a recession. GDP fell sharply. Unemployment jumped from 4.9% to 9% over the course of 2 years, and inflation hit double digits at 12%. So now that we know what happens when a president desires rapid, short-term economic growth, why is this significant today? As we talked about earlier, Trump has spoken out about how the current Fed serve to be unsatisfactory because they aren't cutting rates. So it is fair to say from an economic perspective that Trump today is acting identically as Nixon did in the 1970s. They both are trying to cut interest rates in hopes to make the economy look better under their leadership. However, Nixon was able to do this by pressuring the Fed into cutting rates. Nixon had Arthur Burns, so who does Trump have? Enter Kevin Hassett. Kevin Hassett is now the overwhelming favorite in the betting markets to succeed Jerome Powell as chair in May of next year when Powell's term ends. On paper, Hassett checks off all the boxes for the role. He was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors from 2017 to 2019, and he presently serves as the director of the National Economic Council. However, Hassett and Trump are known to have well-established relationships. Hassett can be seen on TV and in articles constantly praising Trump's leadership, and he is Trump's longest-serving policy advisor still in the government, running NEC from the West Wing, and effectively acting as the president's in-house strategist on trade, tariffs, and monetary policy. This close relationship can be problematic if Hassett is appointed to be chairman of the Federal Reserve. It's important to note that the Federal Reserve is an independent entity, meaning political leaders do not have a say in Fed decisions. As you can tell from the example in the 1970s under President Nixon, when political leaders get involved in economic policy, it can often result in extremely problematic events. Hassett is also known to meet the wishes of the president. A prime example of this can be seen through tariffs. According to the New York Times, when the Trump administration first proposed the idea of tariffs, they first consulted the NEC, which Hassett is a director of. The Times wrote, "He possesses a unique ability to simultaneously translate in both directions, Trumpian gobbledygook into strong, coherent economics." So essentially, when Trump has a policy he wishes to implement, like tariffs, Hassett is the one he goes to in order to turn Trump's idea into a justifiable economic policy. In the situation that Hassett doesn't fold to the pressure from Trump, what would happen then? Last week, Hassett made the case for the rise of artificial intelligence, presenting the Fed with an opportunity to set policy just as Fed Chair Alan Greenspan did during the technological advancements of the 1990s. In the 1990s, computers and the internet were on the uprise. Alan Greenspan saw the potential in this and argued that the internet would make each worker more efficient. He also forecasted that automation would replace slow manual tasks like spreadsheets and software. This would enable businesses to significantly cut costs. Additionally, consumers had easier access to goods and services via the internet. In the end, Greenspan served to be correct. Productivity gains did end up combating inflation, and the rate cuts were justified. Hassett argues that the economy today is exactly how it was in the 90s. AI is speculated to be the next productivity enhancer, much like the internet and computers were in the 90s. Unemployment is also low, continuing the parallel of these two economies. So Hassett believes that the benefits of AI will offset inflation, taking a big bet on the AI revolution. To conclude, if Hassett is elected as governor of the Fed, interest rates will be cut significantly, resulting in surging inflation. This will either happen by him becoming a yes man to Trump, translating his nonsense into economic policy, or with his opinion on AI and how it would enhance productivity, combating inflation. So there are two major situations that could have a major negative impact on the U.S. economy. Either Fed could lose their independence and let Trump dictate economic policy, or the AI revolution could not live up to the hype. Both of these would result in surging inflation and thereby crash the U.S. economy.